Greetings to Kult America. The last few Q&As have been pretty cool, so I decided to do one more from Warsaw today. Alright, first question. Ryan, were you ever thinking about giving up on everything and just going on a long-term travel with a backpack? Well, when I was about 18 years old, I did something like that. Actually, I attended college classes while I was in high school so that I could finish high school early. And I did that because I absolutely hated everything about high school. And when I graduated early, I left the United States with a backpack and flew to London. It was the first time that I had been off the American continent, and my ambition was to start a band because I love many British bands like The Cure, Depeche Mode, Spiritualize, and it was a naive thought because I lived in Portsmouth, England at the time, and I kind of did not realize that British people were not by default ultra sophisticated and musically talented, that actually this was kind of the exception and that people are just people everywhere. And when you live in a city like Portsmouth, there are a lot of aggressive football fans and drunkards, and so that didn't work out. I ended up going the hell home, of course, to do my studies in America, but it was not without purpose. Because I did not enjoy the United Kingdom, I took that backpack and I got a bus to Krakow, and that was the first time that I discovered Poland at the ripe age of 18 years old. So my backpacking days are far behind me and doesn't appeal to me at all. Who's your favorite musician? I have many favorite musicians. In fact, I grew up like an avid Smashing Pumpkins fan. They were my favorite band ever. When I was younger, I also loved Radiohead, and then I got into Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Myslovic is one of my all-time favorite bands. These days, however, might sound odd, but I'm kind of into like folk country or like South country from the United States. And so I would say that my two favorite singers are Jason Isbell and John Moreland, who do American like alt country, and it's pretty awesome and you should definitely check them out. Maybe I'll provide a link. What is the advantage of raising your kids in Poland? Well, there are many advantages to raising my kids in Poland. In fact, having kids is part of the reason I know that I will stay in Poland at least until they're grown, and I hope even after that. But it really comes down to the basics. For one, I enjoy living in a society that's not filled with junkies and gangbangers and criminals. The Polish society is actually comparatively very safe, clean, and hospitable to children. The public schools, I know that Polish people complain a lot, and maybe I've just had an odd experience with that, but the public schools have been really magnificent. The food that they get inside of the school is actually food. It's not processed, microwaved shit from a wholesaler, but you know, there's actually a Polish lady in the kitchen making food, and that alone is a huge difference. I love that in Poland, the teachers are still an authority figure. Sometimes as a parent that can actually be a bit overwhelming, but they take their jobs as professionals and not as something to do because they didn't have any other idea. This has been my experience raising my kids. I'm sure that there are exceptions to that. I don't know what the schools in the villages are like, or other cities outside of Warsaw for that matter, but here the schools are a big reason to stay. Also, when my kids grow and decide to go to university, I really hope that they choose to do so in Poland, assuming that they'll be able to get past that very difficult matura test anyways, because I would not like to be $200,000 in debt because my children elected to study. Why do you promote Black culture so much? I think that that's totally a bullshit question. I don't promote Black culture, or really any culture specifically. Kult America is about learning, and more times than not, it's about learning what happens in Poland and what Polish culture is about. It's not promoting the culture per se, it's a documentation of me learning what's going on here. And whether or not some of you like it, there are Black people in Poland, and they actually contribute to the society here and live normal lives. So I'll feature anyone who I'm interested in my videos, and if you consider that promotion, I think you have the wrong idea about this channel, because this channel is really about learning. What is your connection to Turkey? I don't have any personal connection to Turkey. Actually, I did a DNA test, and my trace regions, like 1,000 years back, show that there's some Turkish heritage, which I thought was kind of fun. But my connection to Turkey is purely business to start. And second, it's such an insane, fascinating place that I can't help but turn the camera on and discover a little bit when I'm there, if I can find the time. How did you start on YouTube? Well, I started on YouTube around 2010, I think it was, and my whole motivation at the time was to try and gain some popularity so that I could later promote my music and have more people attend the shows that I was playing. That obviously changed course a lot, and I ended up doing YouTube as my daily work. And I'm not referring to Kult America, but I produce many different YouTube channels, and I'm happy doing that. But the start was to use YouTube as a vehicle to let people know about my music, about my band. Ryan, do you have any degree? If you had to go to university one more time, what would you choose? So I have a Bachelor of the Arts in Fine Photography, and when I studied, photography was still done on film in darkrooms, and in fact, the teachers did not believe that the future would be digital, which was an asinine thing, and ended up limiting me terribly because I can't even buy the film that I preferred to use when I would shoot photography. So if I could redo my education, and I wish that I could, to be honest with you, I would definitely study something more practical like business. What is the hardest part of making Kult America? The hardest part is finding the time, finding budgets. Actually, when we want to make big triumphant videos like standing in 3 states at once, I have to fly across the world, I have to organize a car, and it's all very expensive and time consuming. And the hardest part actually comes when the video goes out, because I could sit here in my studio and create a video that people seem to appreciate just as much, if not more, than when I go to the trouble of actually being in a different country with a cameraman. And so sometimes I feel really conflicted as to whether or not it's worth doing. I mean, at what point do I draw the line and do what's interesting just to me versus doing what I know would satisfy the audience in a practical sense? Why do you keep mentioning that you're a Scorpio? Do you believe in zodiacs? Well, important note, I always say that I'm a left-handed dyslexic Scorpio. And the reason that I say this is very sarcastic. I'm kind of like fulfilling the labels that other people have put on me. It's the same reason that I have an American propaganda style artwork on Kult America. I'm really, in a way, embracing labels that people have given me. And this is not original. Actually, a lot of people ask why it's okay for African Americans to call each other niggas, but if a white person were to call an African American a nigga, or nigger, even worse, they would be condemned for it. And it's simple. The African Americans embrace this highly disgusting and negative connotation in a sense that maybe belittles the original meaning that other people put on it. And I like to think I do the same thing with my artwork and with the labels that I've been given me, specifically the learning disabled or dyslexic label, which has really been a curse throughout my childhood. Ryan, what is your favorite video game? For the record, I think video games are a cancerous waste of time. I don't play them, I don't like them, and I'm not interested in them. But if you like them, I'm glad that you have something you enjoy. And final question, Ryan, where is Irina from? Well, I could tell you where she's from, or perhaps you could tell me in the comment section below, where do you think Irina is from? Of course, I will pin the correct answer to the top in the comment sections. Other than that, if you guys have more questions for us, send them to my Facebook page or in the comment of this video. Subscribe to Kult America, and I will see you again soon.